Hey guys, I'm Kaya, and for nearly 80 years, the Cape Crusader has agonized over all the innocents lost by letting the Clown Prince of Crime live.
It'd be funny if it weren't so pathetic. No, what the heck, I'll laugh anyway.
Now don't get me wrong, I'm not a Snyder hater, but I don't want a Batman with blood on his hands, especially when we can do the dirty work for him. So, get off the gas, pull your pudding close, and wipe that smile off your face, because this is How to Kill the Joker. Mr. J has been a thorn in Batman's side from the very beginning, and while the story of his creation is a whole nother can of laughing gas, the credit is currently shared between Bob Kane, Bill Finger, and Jerry Robinson. But whether he was inspired by a playing card or an old silent film actor, he's endured as one of comics' most long-lived villains, even though he's had more than a few run-ins with the Grim Reaper. So, let's start out with the times the Joker became a canonical corpse. The Joker's first appearance was also damn close to his last. Back in 1940, the idea of a reoccurring supervillain was still a pretty new concept.
You know what you're doing?
Yeah, I've knocked that Adolf Hitler over 200 times.
In fact, writer Bill Finger thought it would make the Dark Knight look like a complete loser if the bad guy kept coming back.
Let's just pretend the whole thing never happened and do this some other time. Okay?
So he killed him off in his second ever story, when the Joker lashes out with a knife in a desperate attempt to disembowel the Dark Knight and accidentally stabs himself in the stomach instead. We've all been there. The dialogue is pretty cut and dry that Mr. J is deader than disco, but DC knew the character was too cool to kill off for good, so they hastily threw in a panel where a doctor declares the Joker will pull through. He returns in the very next issue, teaming up with Catwoman and seemingly perishing inside a burning building. For the bulk of the Golden Age, nearly every Joker appearance ended with his apparent demise, usually by a deadly drop. He fell off lighthouses, boats, trains, and even a dirigible, only to appear unscathed the next month. At a certain point, DC didn't even try to explain how he came back, but once the comics code came into the picture, the creepy clown stopped appearing quite so frequently, and when he did, the smiling serial killer was neutered to a goofy prankster, whose crimes didn't exactly warrant a brutal death. Because when he's just going around like, and Batman's like, oh, you silly Joker, and Joker's like, wait, I'm gonna be a fucking homicidal maniac in a second.
But first I gotta give wedgies.
First I have to... But first, Batman, can you just turn over? My evil plan is to give you a wedgie. I really just help a brother out. The Joker was back to his murderous methods by the 70s, and when he resurfaced in stories like the legendary Laughing Fish, the tradition of fake-out deaths continued, from getting struck by lightning to various vehicle explosions. Now, none of them stuck, obviously, not even when Talia al Ghul absolutely riddled him with bullets. This was the closest Joker came to actually giving up the ghost, but since he was the only clue to stopping a world-ending plague, the Batman actually threw him in a Lazarus pit to bring him back. And in a cool twist, instead of the usual berserker rage, the pit actually makes him sane for a second, and he finally expresses regret for the hundreds of lives he's taken. But not a damn drop of regret for the wedgies. Not a damn one. He's just like, it was worth every f***ing one.
All the whoopee cushions.
All the whoopee cushions. I don't regret any of the whoopee cushions, any of the swirlies, any of the wedgies, but the killing I probably shouldn't have done. Luckily, that didn't last long. I don't know if his resurrection made him more impervious, but years later, he survives a point-blank shot to the head at the beginning of Grant Morrison's legendary Bat Run, lives through getting his face sliced off, and, of course, defies death after another dizzying drop. His most recent brush with the great beyond came at the finale of Endgame, no relation, where he and Bruce were both crushed during a cave-in, though they both survived with a minor case of amnesia. Today, the Joker's alive and well in the reborn DC universe, but it's a much different story on screen.
I do believe it's that arch-criminal, the Joker.
Now, clearly Cesar Romero's mustachioed master of mirth was never gonna die in the campy 60s show. But Tim Burton's Batman had no compunction against killing.
Excuse me. Have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight?
As the Joker, Jack Nicholson delivered one of the most iconic and expensive performances in movie history, and his controversial involvement in the death of Thomas and Martha Wayne gave Bruce even more reason to put the clown down permanently.
You wouldn't hit a guy with glasses on, would you? Huh?
So, when the Joker tries to flee from the brutal battle atop Gotham's ridiculously high clock tower, Batman has no problem hooking a heavy gargoyle to his leg and sending him plummeting to the streets below. Now, usually with Joker death drops, you'd never see the body, but Burton lingers the camera on his corpse as a toy lets out one last cackle. And as far as live action deaths go, that's pretty much it. Heath Ledger's Joker is just hanging out by the end of Dark Knight.
You just couldn't let me go.
And before the actor's tragic passing, he was even supposed to appear as an Arkham inmate in Rises. And since we don't yet know what fate has in store for the clowns played by Jared Leto and Joaquin Phoenix, let's look at one of his most memorable deaths ever in Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker. Love it. Live for it. Bless it.
I'm ready to give this old town a wedgie again.
In this controversial classic, we finally learn the truth behind the Joker's mysterious absence from Neo-Gotham. 35 years ago, he kidnapped, tortured, and brainwashed Tim Drake, leaving the former Robin a broken and extremely creepy kid clown. But after witnessing a brutal battle with the Batman, he turns on his own tormentor and kills him with his own gag gun.
That's not funny. That's not...
Tim seemingly beats his programming, but in the present or future, whatever, he's being overcome by Mr. J's consciousness thanks to an implanted microchip. How did you go from being like a 50-year-old man to an undeterminedly aged man who looks much younger than you?
Oh, I never get tired of that.
One blast from a joy buzzer destroys the device and ends the evil of Mark Hamill's legendary Joker, at least as far as the DCAU goes. Hamill reprised the role once more in the Arkham Asylum games, and while they're not in the same continuity as the cartoons, this Joker just seems like an amped up, M-rated interpretation of the same character, especially when he doses himself with Titan formula and turns into a huge, spiky rage monster. What the fuck?
You ever seen this?
No.
Oh my god.
We should watch it.
Oh my god.
Showtime, Batman! Two freaks in a fight to the death.
You were a freak before the spikes, honey. You didn't need to do this. He just looks like an asshole who took too many steroids and now he just was like, I'm also punk. The Titan turns out to be terminal, and despite a crazy scheme involving Clayface doubles, Lazarus pits, and a whole lot of collateral damage, Batman is still willing to cure his hated foe until the Joker accidentally smashes the antidote and dies for good.
Do you want to know something funny? Even after everything you've done, I would have saved you.
Batman is still like, bro, I got you. I know you're going through a lot right now and you look kind of crazy, but buddy, like, I got you.
Pretty funny.
The Arkham series was a fitting send-off from Mark Hamill's iconic run as the character, and he would never play the Joker again. Nope, what? Never again. And especially not in a terrible Killing Joke movie, because that movie doesn't even fucking exist to me.
God damn it.
Speaking of which, let's close out with a look at some Elseworlds.
We meet again.
There's a lot about Alan Moore and Brian Boland's graphic novel that made it into mainstream canon, but the ambiguous ending where Batman seemingly strangles his hated foe as they share one last joke definitely didn't count, which is a shame because it could have opened up some extremely interesting storytelling opportunities. That's why so many Elseworlds and imaginary stories begin with the Joker's death changing everything. The example is The Dark Knight Returns, where an older, world-weary Batman still can't bring himself to end his enemy's life.
Do guests get to keep these?
Sure, you do whatever you want with it. We got a closet full of them.
So long as you won't miss it.
Even after Mr. J slaughters an entire TV studio and poisons a Boy Scout troop with a bunch of flying Chucky dolls. Anyways, Bruce chickens out at the last second. He breaks the Joker's neck, leaving him alive but paralyzed, at least until the killer clown snaps his own neck and frames the Bat for the crime.
See you in hell.
Alternate Batman does a lot of spine snapping, like in The Nail, where he murders the Joker live on television in retaliation for killing Robin and Batgirl. It's not always Bruce with the blood on his hands either. In Kingdom Come, a super edgy 90s-tastic hero named Magog obliterates Mr. J, kicking off a civil war between DC's traditional characters and a new generation of ultra-violent anti-heroes. Kingdom Come clearly inspired Injustice, where Mr. J drugs Superman, making him mistake his very pregnant wife Lois for the deadly Doomsday. After accidentally killing the love of his life, his unborn child, and the majority of Metropolis, then Superman snaps. And the big blue Boy Scout skewers the Joker, an act that turns him into a tyrannical dictator, which is the best Superman you can have, to be honest.
Hi, counselor. Time to kill you again.
Who could have thought that one simple clown can do so much damage? The Joker isn't super durable, he doesn't have powers, he's just a normal dude or dudes who just had one very bad day. Yet time and time again, he cheats death and endures tremendous amounts of punishment only to rise again and wreak havoc on Gotham. When will enough be enough? Look, I'm not about to tell a billionaire kung fu master with some serious psychological issues how to do his job. All I've done is provide a handy dandy guide to stopping the Joker for good. Your move, Bats. But don't kill him.
Stop laughing.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. So this is a really hard episode for me because Mr. J is the love of my life, but if you wanted to kill him, how would you do it? Push him off a building, gag gun, set him on fire? Leave a comment, let me know, and as always, please subscribe to Now This Nerd.